Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do. Research and the consensus statements from the IOC would say that you don't want to specialize before the age of like 15, right? That's like what a lot of people say for like baseball, basketball, whatever. So I think that gymnastics skews younger and you will have to specialize earlier, but I think at least 10. I really believe that at least till 10 years old, you should do a variety of sports. You should go on family vacations. You should be a kid. You should, just grow and develop, because there's obviously the mental health aspect of that, which is risking burnout, right? And there's also overuse injury with repetitive patterns of jumping and landing or whatever. But then there's also is from a performance point of view, whether you're looking at Esteban Balli's research or many of the people, we know that the more generally athletic we can start somebody off in their career, they can have a higher peak ceiling down the road. So I think that the fear and the misconception in gymnastics is that if we don't specialize early enough, we're going to miss out on our window of getting on that early train to success. And I think in reality, what we're doing actually is we're probably pigeonholing kids into a limited long-term athletic performance. You know what I mean? So the only thing that I've found is I've read a bunch of books and research on like what makes true meaningful change in people's lives and lifestyles and habits, and reverse engineering what they want out of the sport or what they want out of their goals is really, really important. So if someone, like I have multiple times when someone's like back fracture, overexhausted, like training way too much, like shin splints are coming on preseason, and it's just like, take a step back and you're like, yo, what do you want with gymnastics? Like, what are your goals? And 9 times out of 10, it's like, I want to get a college scholarship. I want to move up in level. I want to compete this skill. I want to have fun with my friends and stay involved with my community. And you essentially just have to context specifically pull out what that most important goal is for them. So let's use like the scholarship, because that's really popular right now with a lot of gymnastics. It's like, I want to get a scholarship my junior year, right? So it's like, okay, you're 14, right? And if you want to get a scholarship and be 100% like you want to have all your skills and ready to roll, no college can even talk to you or entertain those ideas until junior year, right? Which means sophomore year, you need to kind of be ready to rumble getting your film. So you'll probably be 16 when that happens. You just turned 14 right now and you have a back fracture, your shin's hurt, you're training all the time, you're exhausted, your schoolwork's not going well. Like, do you think this is a sustainable roadmap to be peak performance in 2 years and then be peak performance in 2 more years to get that scholarship? And then, oh, by the way, you actually have to perform for 4 years more after that when you get to the school, because they are now giving you a scholarship to compete and train for your team. So when you open up the broader perspective of like, okay, your goals are college, which means in 2 years from now, you have to be fully healthy, fully ready to go. Do you think this is sustainable? And usually they're like, no, there's no way I can train this hard, this aggressively for 2 full more years and not break, not fall apart. Like there's some athletes I've worked with that have cumulatively missed 2 to 2.5 years of training since the age of 10 because they've just like osgood slaughters, then a back thing, then a shoulder thing, then an elbow thing. And like, they're just constantly running uphill with their injuries. Like I talked to a lot of college athletes. I consult a lot of like college gymnasts. And it's like, I don't think you realize that like you're doing all the hard work, but that's not how adaptation occurs. It's not like work plus work plus work equals adaptation. It's work. The optimal dosage of work plus the optimal dosage of rest is how you get true adaptation. So it's like sometimes 30 minutes of Netflix after a grinding day all day long is like actually helpful to put you in a chill state before you go to bed, or like taking a hot shower and just not thinking about the world for 15 minutes is really good for you. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to convince gymnasts who are so type A, go, go, go. And they've been just like, just completely brainwashed to think that more is better all the time. It's really hard to teach them the opposite is true, which is the most elite pro athletes we work with are just as good at their recovery tools and shifting out of their training mode as they are hustling and killing it in the gym when they're there. I think the concepts of rate of force development and power derivatives are really, really helpful. The problem there is that when we're already barely getting someone in once per week or twice if they're really trained, technically it's a lot to technically train them how to properly hang clean to get them, doing it to a point where it's worth your time. So for the majority of people, we won't use true barbell Olympic lifting work, but we will do Olympic lifting derivatives, right? So like landmine push jerks or dumbbell snatches, or we'll do that and combine it with like a seated dumbbell jump or a band resisted broad jump to try to get the similar stuff. Because for someone who's new to the barbell and you only get them once per week, to get them to maximally express like violent level of power on a hang clean is really tough, right? But I could definitely get there with a med ball slam, a seated box jump. I could definitely get there with maximal intent. After a week or two, and you train someone to like really put maximal intent, I just think it comes down to an equation of time. Like how much time do you have to really get someone's adaptation that you want? So we use a lot of Olympic lifting derivatives for landmines and or dumbbell work or med ball work. We'll do like that. And then some of like seated jumps and stuff like that. Like you can have athletes who are loose and tight at the same time. So a lot of baseball players, dancers, gymnasts, circus performers, whatever, they're loose jointed, but they can develop soft tissue adaptations that make them stiff still. So the more you repetitively throw a baseball, we know your shoulder gets stiff, you lose IR from a soft tissue point of view. And if you don't manage that and you lose elevation, you have elbow risk, right? You have a TJ layback risk from that stretch. So I think that's what we've seen come to fruition with gymnastics too, which is like you can have laxity in your joint capsules of your shoulder and your hip, but because the sport is so demanding on your adductors, your quads, your lats, your teres, you can start to get this little perfect storm where you're stiff and loose at the same time. So I think that's the first point of education for a lot of people is trying to bias soft tissue work and or stretching that is put towards the muscular tissue, not the joint capsules, right? So education on that comes down to like, I do think gymnasts do need to stretch every day because it's part of their warm up. It's part of their extreme flexibility maintenance, but how they go about that is very important, which is not just putting your leg up on a block and doing oversplits as your only, mechanism that you use. There's definitely a time and a place for oversplits to get your full range of motion, but proper screening to know, is it your lat versus your teres major versus your pec? Like which one of those three things is the most involved? Soft tissue care via foam rolling, manual therapy, soft tissue, dry needling, whatever, like that's probably good to add in there, but like specific stretching that is very targeted at the musculature.